fans in a lot of ways. I know how they feel. They're great. They're loyal. They want to bang for their buck.
Hold up. Hold up. Hope you're ready for the next episode. Hey.
All right, everybody. As we mentioned earlier, this is season 3, episode 1 of the LarschCast. And we are incredibly thankful to have 2 guests on that are also actually just recorded season 3, episode 1 of their own podcast to a bit more fanfare, I would imagine. They had Travis Green on talking all things COVID and this upcoming season as well. Without further ado, we'd love to welcome to the show Darren Dreger and Ray Ferraro, TSN analysts and hosts of the Dregers Podcast. Welcome, guys.
Hey, guys.
Hey, thanks.
So I think I want to start off. News of the day here, obviously, I think in Canucks land is the Kaprizov contract coming in 5 years, $9 million. That's a tough contract to come in for negotiations with Petey, in my opinion. I just want to get your guys' sense of, do we think that $9 million is now the high watermark for Petey, or what effect does that have on his contract and the current negotiations?
Well, it's going to have some impact. There's no question about that. I mean, when you look at comparables, every restricted free agent and obviously unrestricted free agents put their lists together. Elias Pettersson can ask for whatever he wants. For me, it's more about the term than it is the dollars. Even the dollars always matter. But the reason that Kaprizov is a good comp is because of the points per game, as we talked about in episode 1 of the podcast. And they're very similar, other than the fact that Pettersson's got a bigger margin to work with because he's played more games in the National Hockey League. So the sample size is larger, and maybe that's enough proof for Vancouver Canucks fans that he deserves that kind of term and that kind of money. But this has been a wild one for the Minnesota Wild, no pun intended. I mean, they originally offered guys 8 years at $9 million, and Kaprizov backed away. He didn't want that. So imagine settling on a 5-year term at $9 million. So no doubt it'll have some influence, but at the end of the day, it's going to be up to the ownership of the Vancouver Canucks to decide whether they have the stomach to pay it or the cap flexibility to make it work.
Well, and Dregs, doesn't it matter a little bit that, Minnesota had to sign Kaprizov and nobody else. Vancouver, of course, has door number 2, which is Quinn Hughes. And you can't sign one without the other. It puts them in, if Hughes goes first, it puts them in some jeopardy, as you pointed out on our podcast, that would open up a door for potential, although in my opinion, a long shot offer sheet. But you don't want to get pinned to the mat here. You're already in pretty tight quarters. So if you want to keep the number in a different position and they're talking about a bridge contract, well, now you open the door a little quicker. Yeah. And there, I've been told by a couple of GMs, they have the same line. They kind of phrase it the same or a different way, but they always say it at some point, the cap beats everybody. You just have to make sure that your mistakes that you make don't put you in a corner that you can't get out of. There's no question the 2 most important contracts, unfortunately for Vancouver, are the ones at the end, and that's Pettersson and Hughes.
So when it comes to, the bridge deals versus the long-term deals here, and I'm talking specifically about Pettersson in this question here, but what do you guys think is the best case for the Canucks point of view? I mean, if you bridge Pettersson now, it takes him to the year 2024, he'll be age 25, he'll still be an RFA, and then you can go long-term 8 years, take him to the age of 33. But if you sign him long-term now, even if they had the flexibility, or if they decide to bridge Hughes instead, that means he's signing a UFA contract, an expensive one at the age of 30. So what do you guys think is the best case, or what should the Canucks actually be thinking about long-term with Pettersson? And I'll start with you this time, Ray, first.
Well, the problem with that is it's funny. It's just numbers. And you say that, when I say just numbers, hell, it's tens of millions of dollars, right? But you get into that position where you start to buy free agent years, and exponentially the dollars go up to the player. The player's not just giving the years away, which is, most of the point, I think, here for Kaprizov. He's betting on himself somewhat, although it's kind of nice to make that bet when you got $45 million in your jeans. That, I think the cap's going to change. I think the financial health of the league / the world will change in 5 years, and who knows where the salary cap might go. So that's the bet here. But to say, would the Canucks like to sign him for a long term and lock in the dollars? Yeah, of course they would. The player might not want that. It might seem counterintuitive, but the player might say, I want less years, because I think in those 3 years, in those 5 years, the cap will change, the league health will change. And instead of us talking about $9 million, what about if I'm talking about $12 million?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because it's a legit open book possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that's the work that CAA hockey is doing, right? I mean, it's educated guessing to a point when you're trying to see the end of a pandemic. I mean, who can see that? As Ray identifies, I mean, there is evidence to suggest that the league is getting healthier. The salary cap is going to climb. We know that. But how much is it going to climb in the next 4, 5, 6 years? Nobody really knows that. But the players are banking that it's likely going to take 4 or 5, maybe 6 years to get back to good, strong financial health. So I feel like that's a part of the reason anyway why Pettersson and Hughes would rather go for a 4 to a 6 year term. And the Vancouver Canucks would rather have a better hold of cost certainty in a 2-3 year bridge. That can get complicated too, right? With qualifying offers at the end of the contract and all of that. But at least they own the rights of the restricted free agent on a bridge deal of 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be a really, really interesting situation. And there's a lot of gamesmanship being played out there right now. And it was interesting to see, again, another thing that happened for Canucks land was the comments made by Jack Hughes earlier this week. I just wanted to see what your guys' sense of, is that just some gamesmanship? Is that him supporting his brother? And then secondly, what in your opinion is the high watermark, or what does Hughes need to do specifically on the defensive side of the puck to prove the doubters wrong this year? Maybe Dregs first.
Well, I mean, I'll let Ray handle the analysis of Quinn Hughes. I mean, both of us have kind of rolled our eyes a little bit with the comparisons to Cale Makar. Not to say that Quinn Hughes can't get there, but that's a tough comparison to make when you look at how well-rounded the game of Cale Makar is right now. And there's all kinds of upside in Quinn Hughes. As for the comments from Jack Hughes, I mean, look, I don't think anybody should be surprised how tight that family is. Yeah. Obviously, he's going to support Quinn. He's going to support his brother Luke. I mean, when he was drafted, you know, there was no one happier in the entire world than brother Jack.
That was a great shot.
It absolutely was. And not to make, the same comparison, but Ray and so many people have talked about it since Matthew Tkachuk came out swinging in support of his younger brother, Brady, with a similar contract dispute with the Ottawa Senators. Mm-hmm. Jack wasn't nearly as bold as Matthew was. But, hey, blood matters. And Jack is going to support, and he believes, I'm sure, that Quinn Hughes deserves every penny and every year that he's going to continue to negotiate hard for.
Well, I would say if I'm Jim Benning and Jack Hughes is making his comments publicly like he did, or if I'm Pierre Dorion and Matthew Tkachuk's making the comments he's making, that matters zero to me. Like, I could care less what his brother has to say. We could ask his mom and dad too. Do you think they're like, of course they're going to defend him. It means... Right. It means nothing in the grand scheme of things, yet it kicks up some dust because it's noteworthy, right? But it really doesn't matter. Shouldn't matter. Public perception shouldn't matter. What the fans think shouldn't matter. Take one of the greatest GMs in the last 30 years or so, 40 years, has been Lou Lamoriello. Do you think Lou cares one thought about any of that? No, he does his job. He does it the best way. Some work, some deals work, some deals don't, but none of that stuff matters. It's just noise. And I think I think that's what should matter. If I'm Jim Benning, is what's my negotiation and my talk with Pat Brisson and JP Barry and CAA Sports all about? Because it's got nothing to do with anything else. As for Quinn on the ice, I thought last year when the Canucks started to struggle, he tried to create too much all the time. Agreed. And so because he's not a big guy, he's got to be careful about getting on not even the wrong side of the puck, to get into a 50-50 share of the puck when he's defending. Because in most cases, he's going to lose that battle even if it's a 50-50 puck against somebody that weighs 20 pounds heavier than him. Quinn is quick enough, sharp enough, agile enough to play a little bit more underneath the puck on the defensive side without sacrificing his offense. For him to defend, it's really about two things, because his skating is, I mean, that's not even a talking point.
Yeah.
But it's about angles, like how he goes into the corner, how he defends somebody, and how he's going to angle them out of space. And number two, it's how does he use his agility to get himself into a position to use his stick to defend, because he's not gonna lay somebody out. He's not gonna be, if he's trying to body and pin, he's doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
He's got to angle, pinch, release, get it back to the middle of the ice.
So just got a couple updates from camp here. And, first of all, separate note, Connor Garland is creating a crazy buzz around the players, and Brock Besser looks like he's ready to start the season hot. But when it comes to Oliver Ekman-Larsson, he's taking camp seriously. That's the note that I got from the camp here, that he's taking it so seriously, and he wants to
breaking
perform.
News,
Yeah. Oh, well, not really. But the point is, following up with that, the fact that OEL, he understands the opportunity here with the Canucks, and that the belief in him. And I want to tie it back to Quinn Hughes. What kind of an impact will OEL have on Quinn Hughes? And can Quinn Hughes become a number one defender underneath OEL's tutelage, or with OEL's presence, potentially, helping but also hindering him in terms of ice time and minutes? And
I'll jump on that first. Okay, so this mentoring thing that people talk about with older players, it's not exactly what people think. I was a young guy and I was an old guy. Some older guys would give you a couple of comments and in passing, and albeit things were different then than they are now. I would have something to offer to a younger guy, but I'm not a coach. I got enough problems. I got my own game to take care of. I can't be sitting there, if I'm Oliver Ekman-Larsson, I can't be sitting there watching Quinn Hughes play every shift with the mindset of, hey, I'm going to help. Yeah, they got a coach for that. They got enough coaches for that. I think he will be better than he was in Arizona, because the heaviness and the weight of losing really does start to get to you. And Arizona was a different spot. I mean, it's what I felt in Atlanta, I'm sure. You just kind of feel out of the mix a little bit. And so this will be a jolt of adrenaline to him. I don't think he hinders nor helps Hughes. They're going to be on the ice very rarely together, unless they decide to play both of them together on the power play. He should be able to play in the low 20s of minutes. That means that Hughes can play in the low 20s of minutes. And that means your third defenseman can play in that 10-minute range, 12-minute range. I mean, that would be a nice little spread for minutes. But I don't think he's look, guys aren't idiots. They know what's in front of them. They understand what the season's about. They understand the opportunity that's there. As much as we all talk about it, it's their job. Yeah, hockey's fun and it's a cool thing, but I didn't need somebody to tell me, hey, Ray, we need you to score goals. I kind of knew that. I knew what my job was. I knew to stay in the league, I had to score. I knew that. He knows after this many years, his game's not been great the last couple, and it's got to be better.
I mean, we've all checked out of jobs ourselves in our lives, right? Sometimes it does the fit. It's no longer a perfect fit, or it doesn't mesh as well. But the second part of that question, Ray, do you truly believe Quinn Hughes can become that number one defenseman, that true number one defenseman? Just like you guys mentioned earlier, you kind of rolled your eyes about the Cale Makar comparables.
Well, okay, so you know who's the number one defenseman? Victor Hedman. Quinn Hughes can't be Victor Hedman.
Yeah.
Victor Hedman's a Viking. I mean, the guy's a monster, right? So it's just like, you'll hear people say, and I'm not sidestepping this, I'm trying to give you an example.
No, I mean, it's perfect. Yeah.
Do you think this guy could be a number one center? Well, in my mind, a number one center is Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl or Nathan McKinnon or Sidney Crosby. Is Nick Suzuki a number one center? Or is he a number 2 center that you got to dress up as a number 1 center?
Mm-hmm.
Like, in my mind, the number 1 centerman, number 1 defenseman, they're legit all-stars.
Yeah.
So every team doesn't have those. So could he be Vancouver's number 1 D? Sure. But that doesn't mean he's all of a sudden going to be able to handle gigantic forwards. He's going to have to do it a different way. That's just his physical size is going to tell you he's going to have to do it a different way.
Dregs, anything you want to add to that?
Well, I mean, as far as, the capability of Quinn Hughes, I don't think that, we've seen the best of Quinn Hughes yet. Obviously,
for
he's
sure,
a developing player, and the upside is tremendous. I'm interested to see how Oliver Ekman-Larsson is going to fit in with the Vancouver Canucks. I mean, as Ray identified, he's going to have to play 20 plus minutes. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. It was a curious trade made by Vancouver with Arizona. I like Connor Garland. I think he's going to be a little buzzsaw out there. He's going to be electrifying. He is going to be entertaining, everything you want. And he's got swagger, and you can never have too much of that, but he's going to have to deliver. So there is going to be some scrutiny on him in a very intense Canadian market. I guess I'd feel better about that trade if we weren't still talking about Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson being unsigned restricted free agents because of all the money that had to be committed to bring in Oliver Ekman-Larsson's mammoth contract in, and the uncertainty that goes into the next number of years that he's now on the books for the Vancouver Canucks. Garland, all right. I mean, you're taking a bit of a flyer on a player that you believe in, but you haven't seen it. We haven't seen it in Vancouver yet. But there are 2 big financial investments that were made ahead of signing arguably your 2 best players in Hughes and Elias Pettersson.
I will say this about the number 1 thing about Hughes is about being a number 1 D, is that what if he's a 65-point defenseman and you're like, yeah, I don't want to match him up all the time, 65, 70-point defenseman, but I don't want to match him up against the other team's best forwards. That's fine. Mm-hmm. Find somebody else to defend.
Yeah.
Like, I think the best teams are able to take a player and put him in the best spot to succeed. Could he do what Victor Hedman does? Nope. Doesn't mean he has to be Victor Hedman, though.
Right.
That's excellent.
Changing gears here, if we look between the pipes, Thatcher Demko has been turning into everything the Vancouver Canucks have hoped that he would turn into since he was drafted in 2014. However, going into this season with the full pressure of being a starter and only having Jarl Halak, who is one of the best backups in the game, but isn't capable of being a number 1 should Demko fail, what does Demko have to do to take that next step forward in being one of the best in the game?
I worry about goalies that, that need to take that next step, that don't have a presence to them. They don't have, like, everything about Demko shows me number 1 goaltender, 50-game guy. He's big. Mm-hmm. He's strong. He doesn't get flustered. Like, all that stuff to me shows this is a guy that can handle a bigger role. There's lots of guys like Alex Nedeljkovic, who had a great little run in Carolina last year. Now he's in Detroit. Mm-hmm. I don't know what he's capable of. It was, you see the difference in, and I think Nedeljkovic's got a nice potential in front of him. I look at Demko and I'm like, the Canucks are in really good hands with this kid. I think he's a legit number 1 goalie. Most teams don't have a number 2 guy that can play 45 games. They don't want that guy playing 45. They're hoping Demko stays healthy, that Halak can give them 25 starts and bridge to Mikey DiPietro, who finally gets to play some games this year. Like, that's kind of how you'd like it to roll. Injuries and, travel and all that other stuff, they'll play a factor in it too. But I don't think goaltending's a position of concern really for Vancouver.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask if you had anything to add to that.
No, I mean, I agree. When I look at the Vancouver Canucks, I mean, it's no different than any other team outside of maybe Tampa Bay because they won back to back. It's fair to question every position with the Vancouver Canucks, but I don't think you do so with an expectation of failure in each position, right? And so when I look at their blue line, as we've already established, I mean, there's some pretty glaring question marks there, but I don't know that any of them are extraordinary. I mean, maybe that blue line collectively is going to be better than what we expect. Likewise up front, again, contract aside, they should be better up front than what they were obviously last season. Goaltending for me, and this might be fair or unfair, it might be the position that would concern me the absolute least. I think Thatcher Demko is ready to make the leap to be a legit number one in the National Hockey League. And with the support of Jaro Halak, who seemingly has been around the game forever and has always been near the top of his game, I like that tandem. I don't think Vancouver is going to have any issues in goal this year.
Yeah. You guys remember? One second, just to cut in. Do you remember Jaro Halak's performance against Canada in 2010? Yeah. Slovakia versus Canada, the quarterfinals. Holy!
Oh man! And then he was unreal in the playoffs that year too. That was the year he took out Pittsburgh and Washington.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. But as a follow-up to the Demko question, as he is ready to be a number one in the NHL with the Olympics coming up, what kind of a chance does Demko have of cracking the USA roster? And would there be a chance of Demko even taking the starting job?
No. Connor Hellebuck's got that thing strangled, wrapped up and in his pocket.
Guaranteed,
I think that guy, I do a lot of Jets games, or I did last year. Man, I'm telling you guys, that guy is good. He's nails, man. Yeah. And it seems like he's got one of those personalities, like he had 35 shots, he wants 37 shots. He had 10 from the slot, he doesn't care, he wants 12. Like there's something about him. The U.S. in goal, I mean, you've got Hellebuck, you've got John Gibson.
Yeah, you still have Gibson, yeah.
Like Gibson didn't forget to play either. Demko will be in that mix there. And I just after being at, I was at meetings in Chicago and for ESPN, and they were talking about the Olympics. And man, guys, there's still hoops to go through here.
Yeah.
And lots of things that have to go right for the players to go. Like if they end up, like if one team gets hit with a COVID spot and they've got to cancel 4 games, that might be it.
Yeah.
Like, like they don't have any more time to go late into April.
Yeah.
Like it's got to be in that 3-week kind of soft cushion of the Olympics. I want them to go. Who doesn't want to watch all that stuff? But I think it's still, it's not 100% in the bag yet.
Yeah. It's going to be a real adventure getting to that. But God, I sure love to see if they can play in the Olympics again, because it's just better with NHL players. And the whole event is more exciting as well too. Guys, I want to take it back to your show, the Rain Dregs podcast that we brought up at the top here. Congratulations on starting the 3rd season. I know you just did your first episode.
Shout out to Rob Reese, a mutual friend of ours.
Absolutely.
Made the original connection to Ray, so I got to give him love there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, very good point. Yeah, thank you so much for that. But I just wanted to ask, maybe for those, and I hope there's not many of them in this market that have never watched an episode of your show, is there a personal favorite or one that you guys would suggest for somebody coming in with fresh eyes? I know personally, like I would imagine Bettman might be up there. For me, Jerry D was a personal favorite. But Dreg, what was yours? If you want to go first.
You know what? Mine was very recent. We did an alumni series, which I think was in fact Ray's idea. So props to Ray for this.
Shocker. One idea in 3 years.
Even a blind squirrel, boys. Even a blind squirrel.
Well, we knew that just contractually we had to pump out more episodes than Ray and I were willing to do live or eat up the rest of our summer. So we came up with 5 alumni episodes, and Steve Stumpy Thomas, man, that was one of those interviews where I left and my face hurt because I was laughing so hard. And, no different than you guys. I mean, we try and be respectful and mindful of the time that people donate to podcast interviews. Yeah. So we normally think, okay, well, 30 minutes is fair. I mean, I think we had to chop him off at 45. Like he was rolling in the stories because he and Ray played together.
Yeah.
Those are always the best. So we've had some great guests, no question about that. We've had great players, we've had coaches, we've had general managers, but the storytelling of Ray's former teammates for me are always the most enjoyable. And I think that our viewers and our listeners get that. So Steve Thomas would be right at the top of the list for me.
For me, Dregs, Stumpy was unbelievable. He's just such a funny guy, just a great guy to be around. So I would recommend that. I'd also, Wayne Gretzky was awesome. And the reason I thought he was awesome, he said things in our interview that I'd never heard him say before.
Oh, nice.
And I was really fascinated by, of course, he's got this brilliant thinker's mind, and, he's always very understated.
Yeah, the kind of mind that should run the country, you think someone.
Yeah. Oh. And that's, you guys can.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Wow.
And DJ just has to start stirring things up.
Oh,
the LarschCast is back, everybody.
It might be true, though.
I just thought, he talked about stuff they found in his dad's basement in a flood.
Oh, wow.
And it was amazing. I love that conversation. We'll have a couple guys this coming year. So Pat Flatley was our captain with the Islanders, and Glenn Healy, who runs the Alumni Association now. When those two knuckleheads come on together, I'm telling you,
it's pure mayhem.
It's mayhem. And so we're looking, we'll look forward to that. But God, we're like you guys. You're thankful when the guests come on.
Yeah.
And then there's nuggets in every show that you go, man, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. And sometimes it's the ones that are unexpected that you're like, well, I didn't even know that was possible in this interview.
It seems like every time Gretzky talks, whatever he's doing, any interview or podcast, he always brings up something new you've never heard about.
Yeah,
it's like he saves these nuggets. Like he's got an endless supply of them, and you always learn something new whenever you hear him talk, which is amazing and speaks to him and his character. But I know, Ryan, you had another follow-up regarding the podcast guest here. You can go ahead and ask that question too, Ryan. Go ahead.
Which question was that?
The Gary Bettman one.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. So I do, Gary Bettman is like this kind of mysterious entity to hockey fans. And obviously most true fans have a very specific opinion about him, as I'm sure you guys are aware of. But I'm just curious, what was the process and lead up like to having him get on? Because I had to imagine it would be like having the Queen on the show, something like
That's
that.
All Dregs. That's all Dregs.
And if you're comfortable sharing, was there a list, or was there a do not discuss, or was he open book on you?
No, he was open book. The man has a significant legal background, right? You're not tricking Gary Bettman into an answer. No, you know what? He's very approachable. He really, truly is. I've been around the league a long time and have been in social settings at GM meetings and board of governors meetings and such. So I've seen him in that environment where you talk about just about everything outside of hockey. So look, his knife is always sharp. I mean, if you're coming after the commissioner and you think, okay, I'm going to be the guy that nails him down on the entire concussion issue, and the Ray and Dregs podcast is going to make headlines for the next 2 years. No, it's just not. Yeah, it's not going to happen. And look, we had Don Fear on the podcast as well, the executive director for the PA. Not to pick one side or the other. I know Bettman better than I know Don Fear. I find Bettman more approachable than I do Don Fear, but I have a healthy amount of respect for the job that both those guys have to do. But look, they were good enough to come on and share their insight through difficult times. It was all more or less pandemic related. So they've got crazy jobs. We think our jobs are tough, but fails in comparison to what they deal with on an hour by hour basis.
Well, let me make your job a little bit tougher here, Dregs. And this is the question I teased you about before the show. There's all these rumors, in Canucks Nation and whatnot, that Darren Dreger hates the Canucks. So I'm going to ask you, why do you hate the Canucks? Why do you hate the Canucks, Dregs?
That's hilarious. Who started that?
I don't know, but you're going to answer it now. Where do those rumors come from? Why do they exist?
Well, the fact that I even have to answer that is borderline ridiculous because it's absurd. I don't hate the Vancouver Canucks. I don't love the Vancouver Canucks. I don't hate any team. I don't love any team. I'm paid to report and tell the stories and give the inside information on what's going on. Canuck fans may not like what I'm saying sometimes, but other times maybe they love it, because, we're taking Jim Benning to task or something along those lines. So now, you know what? I get the same thing in every Canadian market. I do. But when I'm in that market and you're saying good things about the team that you're in, then you're a great guy. So I don't know where it started, but
you mentioned something about Dave Notice before the show. So what was that about? Talk us through that one.
Well, I just assumed that's where you were going to go when you said you had to ask me about the Vancouver Canucks and a rumor. It's kind of gone by the wayside because, Dave is working in Anaheim and he's a part of the management group there, but he's not a general manager anymore. But I used to take a ton of flack when he was GM in Toronto and prior to that GM in Vancouver because we're related, right? So everybody just assumed that every time I broke a trade or a signing at a Vancouver or Toronto, that cousin Dave was on speed dial. And I laugh about that because arguably, he might be the worst source I've ever had.
Fantastic.
All right, great answer there, Ray. So the last thing I wanted to ask you, we had to ask you about your playing career at least once here, and so prior to the show, heard you were a little bit surly because I forgot to give you a link on time. So I'll take.
Well, I wasn't surly. I was in the car. Dregs calls me and says, "Hey, are you coming on?" I'm like, "Well, we never got a link, so like." No, I don't know. I'm picking up Riley, who just.
I sent you guys an email earlier or yesterday saying it's gonna come right before 6. Anyway,
this is what we need to know.
Unusual.
Why we have real professionals.
Yeah, that went right through one ear, right out the other, and I was like, yeah.
Well, all right, but anyways, so going back to your playing career, and the reason I mentioned the whole surly thing is I wanted to ask you to tell us a story about your most angry moment playing hockey. Like, what was the one moment of your career that still to this day pisses you off?
How many hours do we have?
We have as long as Ray wants to talk for us. So come on, give it to us.
Golly, I mean,
what still pisses you off to this day when you think about it?
Well, it pissed me off that we lost to Montreal 2 overtime games and they went and won the Stanley Cup like that. I thought.
Well, what about an isolated moment though, when it comes to just involving you personally?
Okay, it's got nothing to do with the game. There's one that I think of because it was so ridiculous. So back in the day, you had wooden blades, right? Like when we got to the two-piece sticks, you had wooden blades. So you'd curve the blades and put the blades in the ice bucket. Now, I was super particular about my sticks. I didn't like guys fiddling around with them. So we're in Pittsburgh one day, and we're at a morning skate. And so I curve a stick, I put it in the ice bucket, and I go back out in the hall to do the next one. Well, I come back, and the stick's upside down. So I'm like, fuck you guys. So I take the stick, and I stab it back in the ice. I go back out to do the other one. I come back. Now both of them are upside down.
Oh, shit.
And so now I'm starting to get heated. So I come back, I turn them back over. I come back with the third one. And the other 2 sticks aren't in there.
Oh my God.
So now I'm really pissed.
Who's messing with you?
No idea.
You still don't know.
No, I'm with LA, so I got a pretty good idea. It's probably Rob Blake, it's probably Glenn Murray, right? Maybe it's Luc Robitaille. I'm not sure. So now I got the third one, and like I'm so mad. Like literally, I'm furious. I take my stick and I smash it on the ground. I'm like, there, are you guys effing happy? I throw my stick in the bucket and I walk out. Well, now it hits me in that moment. I don't have any sticks because I don't know where the other 2 sticks are. Don't know. Nobody told me. So we gotta go up for a morning skate, and I got to use somebody else's stick.
My
I don't
God.
even know whose stick I grabbed, and I use a really short stick, so I was probably using one that was, a foot and a bit too long. Well, they taped them to the
knob at the top.
The plumbing up on top of the roof. I didn't find them till like way later.
Oh, they taped their sticks up there.
They taped them up because, of course, because I'm not very tall, that I wouldn't see it. And so those things were up there for hours. So.
Oh no!
I was like hiding something on the shelf from your kids. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's like it's got nothing to do with the game. There's no way I should have been that mad about it, but I was furious. I couldn't even. Oh, I'm so mad.
So how did you perform that night? How did you perform that night with somebody else's? Oh wait, you had your sticks later though for the game. You got
for the game. I probably took 2 slashing penalties because I was so agitated.
You got to get it out somehow, hey?
Oh, that is great. That is great. Well, gents, thank you guys both for coming on to our show today. It means a lot to us. Honestly, like we're trying to do this for a year now, and obviously there's some timing issues last year, but just to talk to you both, like Ray Ferraro and Darren Dreger, I couldn't even imagine this moment a few years ago. And so I want to really just, show our appreciation for you guys. And I hope you guys have a great season coming up here. Dregs, you're going to do a lot of TV on TSN and the home games there for the Sens and Leafs. And Ray, I know you're always involved in the game. Are you doing anything with the Turner TV?
ESPN.
ESPN,
I signed at ESPN, and my first game is October the 12th. So I've got Pittsburgh and Tampa when they raise the banner.
Oh, that's a beauty.
So that'll be fun. It'll be really fun. I've still got 20-ish Leaf games and the World Junior Tournament. And we're lucky to do what we do. We not to speak for Dregs, but we get to go see some cool things. We go to some great places. We've seen some great hockey and met some awesome people. It's a good gig. And I will say this about the fans and the media out here. It is a little crazy in Vancouver.
Oh yeah.
I hope people can understand, like, the venom they feel sometimes is just, it's pointless. Like you should be engaged with your team, and you should be disappointed when they lose, but it doesn't mean the guys aren't trying or the guys don't care.
It gets too personal.
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
Love the game, enjoy the game, be passionate about who you cheer for, ride the highs. You're going to have to ride the lows too, because it's not a smooth sail. Enjoy it. It's a brand new season, and there's always the opportunity for it to be great.
Well said.
And by the way, I love the Canucks.
There it is.
You heard it first.
Well, you
roll credits.
Absolutely. I just want to say, take care, everybody on the show. Thank you for listening. Season 3 of the LarschCast. We are back.
Yeah.
Go Canucks, go.
Peace,
Thanks
boys.
so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.